Hello and welcome to another episode of the Career Reset podcast and to the third part of the Career Detox series. Today we are gonna talk about letting go of your past actions or inactions that you might regret and that might be holding you back. And the whole point of this series is to think about the aspects of our past careers that really is like this baggage that we carry around, and it's preventing us from truly having that fresh start and going after an exciting career path that is waiting for you out there, but maybe for all the baggage that you've collected, you find it hard to see that path clearly. If you haven't listened to the previous two parts, then make sure you do that before or after this episode, and make sure you subscribe to this channel, to this podcast, so that you don't miss out our final part next week. And then I'm gonna go back to my regular weekly longer podcast. So if you've been missing my longer chatty episodes, they are coming back, but not before I make sure that everybody's career is detoxed and ready for what's to come in the autumn. If you're like me at this point of the summer, I'm starting to kind of get ready for the autumn and for some routine and having a bit calmer, focused life. But let's just dive into this episode, because those are meant to be bite-sized, quick episodes that help you to move closer towards a clearer headspace regarding your career. And today I'm taking on the topic of regretting your past action or inaction and letting go of that. Maybe if you had approached the situation differently, there would have been a different outcome. So typically what I hear from my clients are two aspects. So one of them is the regret that they could have done more in a particular situation in order to turn things around, or that they should have done less. So for example, in a situation where a company already was kind of a sinking ship, and some people really decided that if they push it and if they do their best, maybe they will be the one who will be spared the layoffs, but then that didn't really make a difference, and they only felt more burned out for putting in a lot of effort for something that didn't matter. Or then the other way, some people feel like they have kind of given up a little bit on the job, and maybe if they got their ducks in a row and they put in more effort, maybe the situation would have turned out differently. And my main advice here is a little bit similar to what I talked about in part one about detoxing and letting go of your past decisions, because when people beat themselves up for this lack of action or too much action that didn't lead anywhere, you're again acting from a place of now having the information you just did not have back then. Like now you know that the outcome was a layoff or bankruptcy of the company or any other negative experience in your career, but you couldn't have known back then. Obviously, like you're a rational person. If somebody told you, hey, you will be 100% no matter what you do laid off in 6 months' time, you wouldn't have suddenly started overworking yourself to possibly overturn the decision. But if back then you just did not have this information, you were maybe even fed the belief by your company that nobody knows what happens, and even though the financials don't look good, things can still turn around. So having this information and having that basic human fear and uncertainty, it's the most rational decision you could have made back then. And with the could have done more, and that would have maybe changed the decision or the outcome, that is tricky, because in a knowledge work like in business and tech, the tricky thing is that it can feel so easy that you could have done more. When somebody works, let's say on an assembly line, they have a clear 8-hour shift, they have a very clear quota of what they need to achieve. I find with these people, they beat themselves up much less for their work performance, because there are these like physical boundaries that they couldn't have done more. But with knowledge workers, it feels like you could have done more, you could have tried better, you could have achieved more. There isn't that physical boundary that could cap your performance, like your output. But there is that cap, obviously, and that cap is your mental and physical health. I don't need to tell you that burnout is a real thing. And then okay, maybe the situation could have been different, but you need to think that what would have been the cost for you. Okay, you could have kept your job and you could have driven yourself to burnout. Would that be really the appealing alternative? Or you would set a new standard that the company expects for you. You could have stayed, the company wouldn't go bankrupt, but there would be such a high pressure on you to maintain that level of performance that you introduced to the company that it just really would not be worth it. I had this one regret about my past career, about a promotion that I never received. I was in this situation that every time I reached the level that was previously promised, that okay, at that point we will promote you, a new level was introduced to me, and I was for a bit in this wheel, but then I realized the bar is just so high that this is not even worth it. That okay, I could keep working harder, I still have something left in me, but will that then be the level that is required of me to maintain in my newer position? And I was in a type of career where there still is that kind of a ladder where the next step is kind of obvious. So I wouldn't have ended there. I would still need to give more to then in a couple of years get again to the next level. And I really felt like I was working the hardest from the company, that even the leadership team was there sipping coffee and having meetings, and I was like first one in the office and last one to leave while having the lowest salary. So yeah, I could tell myself that if I tried harder I would maybe get the promotion, but at that point it really was not worth it, that promotion. And on the other hand, I could tell myself, well, it didn't matter anyway. Like clearly my performance was not enough no matter what I did. So I could have just, done this quiet quitting, do the bare minimum and save the time and energy. Like, yeah, in a way, but I still have some personal integrity. I still want to feel like I gave it the maximum that I wanted to give. So then I know that the situation wasn't a result of my action or inaction. It was the result of the environment. Like the environment was set up in a way that I just could not succeed. I'm the kind of person who always wants to try. I want to leave a situation knowing I gave it my best, and the fact that it didn't work out was outside my control, which makes it easy to accept. But obviously, like that is the way the business world is designed, to always make you feel like you were the problem. You were laid off because of your bad performance, not because the leaders made bad decisions and drove the company to near bankruptcy. Like, which company, which boss would really admit that? Who would include this in their speech when they are laying you off? Of course, it is way easier, way better feeling for them to make you feel like you were in some way responsible for the situation. And when it's just one you who got laid off and then this whole big company, it's very easy to feel like, yeah, it must be me. But in most cases, it just isn't you. And it's very kind of modern nowadays to make employees, even at the lowest levels, feel like they are part of the family and everybody has an impact. We listen to all opinions, but that is just to make you feel better. But in reality, the decisions are still made at the highest levels. And even in the flattest startups, there is always that circle at the top that just makes the decisions. And the main purpose of this small circle is to save their own butts. So I don't want that this episode is cynical about like how horrible the business world is, but I want that it's realistic. That is just how it works. So even though at many points in your career maybe you were made feel like what you do or don't do will have an impact on the final decision of whether your career progresses or whether you will stay, that is just in most cases, that is not how it works. You are just a very small part in a big machine, and in the end, the scope of things you can truly impact is very small. And it's kind of fascinating how like the leaders who make these decisions, who keep postponing the promotions for their employees, who make the layoff decisions, they sleep very peacefully at night. But the people who did nothing wrong and were just affected by these decisions, they are the ones who beat themselves up and thinking that there were things they could have done better. And as we don't have the time machine, you can't go back and have a do-over. And in most cases, I will tell you that I really don't want to relive some of the experiences I have had in my career. But what matters is the action you take or do not take now. And you can use the past experience as a guiding light, at which point it made sense to work harder, at which point it didn't make sense, and focus on the action you take now, because that is something that really can change your career going forward. But arguing with yourself in your head what could have been different, what you could have done, shouldn't have done, didn't need to do, that will create no tangible results going forward in your career. So I hope this episode gave you permission to let go of beating yourself up for not doing enough or for doing too much and it not leading anywhere. That you now understand that in most cases the impact you really had over the situation was very minimal, that some decisions were already made before you even shifted gears and started putting your 110%. But what matters is to focus on the action going forward, not on the past action, what should have been, could have been, and all that kind of stuff, but being now where you are, knowing the things you know, having the experience you have gone through, you can make a better decision about what action makes sense going forward. And that's the whole purpose of this series, to make your head a little bit clearer. And instead of all these past experiences just swirling there at 11 p.m., to make more space for the future, for thinking about the next steps, getting excited about the career you still have ahead of ourselves. And that's what we're gonna wrap up in the next episode, in the last part of the Career Detox series. If you aren't yet subscribed, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, to this channel, so that you don't miss out, because the next part, it will really bring it all together. And if you haven't yet, make sure you catch up on the last 2 episodes. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you're enjoying your summer, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye bye.